Hi guys, I want to wish you all a happy Easter. I'm recording this out in the garden. You may hear dogs barking, maybe the sun is going out and in, so that might make my face bright or dark. But this is the time I have to do this video, and I'm sorry if there's some of these distractions. I want to read from John chapter 21. This is one of the resurrection appearances of Jesus. So as we know, Easter is the time when Christians celebrate Jesus being raised from the dead. And there were several appearances that Jesus made to individuals or groups of people. And this is where he has a conversation with Simon Peter. So I just want to read from John chapter 21. After this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he revealed himself in this way. Simon Peter said to 6 of his fellow disciples, "I'm going fishing." And they said to him, "We'll go with you." And they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore, the risen Jesus, yet the disciples did not know that it was him. Jesus said to them, "Children, do you have any fish?" And they answered him, "No." He said to them, "Cast the net on the right side of the boat and you will find some." And they do what Jesus said, and there's a miraculous catch of fish. And then they come to Jesus on the shore and they have breakfast together. And then verse 15. When they'd finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Feed my lambs." He said to him a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you're old, you will stretch out your hands and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go." This he said to show by what kind of death Peter would glorify God. And after saying this, he said to him, "Follow me." Well, the last time I spoke to you was Good Friday, and that seems an odd title to use for that day when such a dreadful thing happened to the Son of God. But the reason that, of course, Christians give it that title is that we believe that God took what was dreadful and he made that the way of salvation for everybody who trusts in Jesus, the way of forgiveness. Well, we're into thinking about Easter now, and by the time we read this story, Jesus has been raised from the dead, and this is one of his appearances. Now, you would have thought that Jesus being raised from the dead would have been the occasion for great happiness. But I believe in the story that we read today, there would have been an anxiety in the hearts of the disciples, and especially Simon Peter. You see, at his hour of greatest need, they'd all let him down. And Simon Peter had actually said 3 times, as Jesus was being tried unjustly, Simon Peter was warming himself around a charcoal fire, and 3 times he's asked, "Are you one of this man's followers?" And 3 times he says no. Do you remember what we read earlier, that Jesus and 7 of these disciples, they had breakfast together. And the Bible actually tells us they had breakfast around a charcoal fire that Jesus had prepared. And that must have reminded Simon Peter especially of the charcoal fire around which he had betrayed Jesus and denied him 3 times, and the third time with oaths and curses that would have turned the air blue. And as if that wasn't enough, Jesus takes them for a walk, the two of them together along the beach. And just as Peter had denied Jesus 3 times, Jesus now asks him 3 times, Simon Peter, do you love me? And the interesting thing is, there's aspects of this conversation that are hidden in our English translations of the Bible. The first time Jesus says to Simon Peter, do you love me? He uses a word for the most extreme form of love there is. A love that would do anything for the one it loves. There's no sacrifice it wouldn't be willing to offer. There's no lengths it wouldn't go to. And it doesn't matter whether the person loves in return or not. There's just this deep, deep, deep love. And Jesus asks Simon Peter, do you love me like that? Because Simon Peter had once claimed he did, that even though everybody else would let Jesus down, he would never forsake him, but he had. And Simon Peter responds, and again this is hidden in our English translations, he says, yes, Lord, you know that I love you, but he actually says yes, no, because the word that he uses for love as he speaks back to Jesus in answer to his question is not that word for all-consuming, love that would do anything, go anywhere, sacrifice anything. He uses a different word for love. He says, Lord, I love you as a friend. And again Jesus asks Simon Peter, do you love me with this all-consuming love that would sacrifice anything for me? And he says, Simon Peter says in response, yes, no. You know that I love you, but I love you as a friend. I once claimed to have a greater love for you than that. I once claimed I would have this love that would go anywhere, do anything, be willing to suffer anything, but events have proved that was an empty claim. Yes, no, Lord, you know that I love you, but I love you as a friend. And the third time, Jesus comes down to Simon's level of love that he's been talking about, and he says, Simon Peter, do you even love me as a friend? And that hurt Simon Peter. That got to him. But he was able to answer truthfully, Lord, you know all things. You know that what I'm saying now is true. I can't use that word for all-consuming love. But I can say genuinely from the depths of my heart, I want to be your friend. And the amazing thing is that was enough for Jesus. They actually accepted Simon Peter back on that lower level, as it were, the level of friendship, simply friendship. The amazing thing is that Peter's love for Jesus grew from that place. And Jesus actually tells him that a day will come when he'll actually die for him, the one he previously was too afraid to say he even knew him. And that's the journey that Jesus, the risen Jesus, took Simon Peter on, from a place of friendship to a place where the love was so deep that Simon Peter was willing to die for Jesus. In fact, when they came to crucify Simon Peter said, I'm not worthy to die the same way as Jesus. And you know what those that crucified him did? They turned him upside down, crucified him upside down, just as a taunt about his love for Jesus. You know, the risen Jesus promises that where 2 or 3 meet together in his name, he really is there. And as I'm speaking to you now, I'm believing in faith that as we're listening to this, whenever we listen to it, that somehow in that place of togetherness, the risen Jesus will be close to each one of us. And maybe you've followed this journey through from the Garden of Gethsemane to how Jesus loved us enough to die for us on the cross, and now maybe the risen Jesus is asking each of us, well, I've made it beyond doubt that I love you. Look at what I did for you on the cross. And I'm standing beside you right now saying, I love you. Do you love me? And isn't it good to know that we don't need to speak beyond where we are? That some of us might genuinely, as we've come to the tab over this last while, we might actually be thinking, do you know what, I want this Jesus, but I'm not terribly sure of how loyal my heart will be, or can I really say to him that I love him and would do anything? And maybe you feel, I'm not sure I can say that. Isn't it good to know that Jesus accepted Simon Peter back on the level of him simply saying, Lord Jesus, friend of sinners, I want to be your friend too. And his love grew from that simple place to a very deep place of loyalty, where he really did learn to love Jesus with that love that didn't hold back anything from him, even to the giving of his own life for the sake of Jesus. So as you've thought about Jesus' love in Gethsemane and Good Friday, perhaps Easter Day is the day to think, what am I going to offer him? And if you're willing to, you can begin on that level of simple friendship. We're told in the Bible Jesus is the friend of sinners. What good news that is, because every one of us has sinned, every one of us. And he comes to sinners as one who died for sinners and as one who wants to be our friend. And it's within our gift, by the grace of God, to be able to say, well, Jesus, I don't think my love for you can ever match your love for me. But can you take me on board at this point? You've said you're my friend. And I want you to know today I want to be your friend. Please come into my life. And please may we walk hand in hand through all the days of life that you grant me. And help me to be a loyal friend. And by your grace, one day help me to be even more than that. So that's my thought on this Easter Sunday. It's a day when the risen Jesus is close to us. And he says, I love you. I've proved I'm your friend, and even more than that, I'm your Saviour. I'm your Lord. I'm your King. And I could demand obedience to the hilt in every aspect right now. But I'm prepared to begin here. If you want to be my friend, I'll warmly receive you as that. And from that place, we'll see how things develop. So may these thoughts bless you on this Easter Day. I don't know if there's going to be a repeat of the Krispy Kremes at Christmas time, or whether the lockdown makes that impossible. But there's something even better than Krispy Kremes on offer. The friendship of Jesus for all of life and for all of eternity. And there's something even deeper than Krispy Kremes to think about. The deeper satisfaction of us becoming a friend of Jesus and taking hold of his hand, and by the grace of God knowing that he'll never let go of our hand. May that be your joy, a satisfaction greater than Krispy Kremes for sure. May that be your joy this Easter and every day. So God bless.